And welcome back to Restless. Matt, you're about to say something.
I was going to say, welcome back to Restless.
I'm sorry, that's my line. Anyway, Matt, I think secretly wants to be me, but that's okay. So do most people.
It's not a secret.
It's not a secret. You've joined Matt, as you can tell, Lauren, as you can also tell, because there's only one girl that laughs like that, and Paul, who has been silent mysteriously this entire time.
Yeah.
I thought
He nodded. I thought he was just going to nod. Okay.
I thought you were just going to
Can't
nod.
help myself.
Anyway, thank you for joining us again. Last week we kind of examined some of the current events that were going on in the world, very specifically the war in Ukraine and how that's impacting us and how we as Christians should respond to that. But we want to take even a further step back and look at some current events. Because, we're thinking about this weekend, really. It was like the 2-year anniversary of COVID. It's kind of a sad anniversary, I suppose, of the lockdowns.
Lockdowns.
I remember, I keep a daily journal, and I remember writing, this COVID insanity is just sweeping the world. Little did I know that it was not going to be, a day or a week or a month, but 2 years on, we're still thinking about it, still talking about it. I mean, what's been your thoughts now 2 years in?
Well, one thing to note is we're only finally lifting mask mandates.
Well, again.
Some places, yeah.
Right.
Which is crazy to me. And, finally in schools, like poor children, right, who really have been the least vulnerable this entire time and have suffered the most. I mean, who
You know
would
what's
have thought
interesting though?
that?
I'm gonna be a conspiracy theorist right here. I was doing some research on March 2nd, 2022. There were 1,000 more COVID deaths than there were on March 2nd, 2021. So we're actually in a worse shape now, but there's less restrictions, perhaps because the world is distracted with other things. How much of that was social media fueled?
Do you
Right.
mean like within the nation?
Within the
there were
nation, yeah.
1,000
That was
deaths?
Johns Hopkins statistic, yeah.
But COVID cases are way down.
Not
and
really.
therapeutics, yes, and therapeutics have gone way up.
Yeah, that's true. Therapeutics have gone way up, but there were more deaths that one particular day. I don't know. It just kind of goes up and down, but
Right. You did say you were going to be a conspiracy theorist.
that was my conspiracy. Well, my conspiracy was that a lot of it's fueled by social media and by.
I mean,
Oh, well,
I
that's
don't even
definitely
think that's a
true, yeah.
conspiracy. I think
Yeah,
that
no,
we
that's
just all
true.
acknowledge that and accept it.
No,
Okay,
how
fair.
about upcoming elections and people who are in political positions are finally responding to the public who are done
Yeah.
with all this stuff. So
true,
now
too.
they're all lifting it right around when Biden gave his State of the Union address. Is that coincidence? No.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, we can go down a rabbit hole of conspiracy.
Politics, man. Politics.
It's very
stinks. It's the
political.
worst.
Yeah,
Anyone
no,
who
I mean,
says it
I mean,
isn't,
yeah.
not paying attention.
But, Paul, you said something interesting over break that you say a lot of the stuff that has been going on the last couple of years, because we have the BLM movement, we've got the war and everything. I mean, do you
Inflation, we mentioned.
think inflation, which is coming in hard and fast with gas prices and everything. I mean, some of it's got to be connected.
I think a lot of it is. So maybe just taking each thing in turn. So I think that when you think about, obviously the George Floyd tragedy happened and there was an outrage for it. But I think a lot of the outrage, the continued outrage and the protests and the burning of cities and the looting, which I'm not sure how that particularly is in support of George Floyd. That's another topic. But a lot of it was because people weren't working. They were at home. They had nothing to do. And so you had college students, you had people that work jobs that are either working at home or not working, and they were on the streets protesting for days, for weeks, for months, as it turns out. So I think that's what it is. I think the election was influenced by COVID. I think that the politics that happened all throughout the course of it was all influenced by COVID. And then you talk about inflation, which is hitting a lot of people really hard right now. Fortunately, inflation gets the lowest tiers of the economic spectrum the most. It hits them the most. And gas prices are we've never, in our lifetimes, we've never had a situation where we've had high gas prices and high inflation in every other part of the economy. In the past, we've had high gas prices and 2% inflation otherwise, right? And I think that's because you had this situation where people are either soothing themselves, which we can go back to the theological aspect of this. They're soothing themselves by buying stuff, right? And so you're forcing up demand for physical goods, which is creating inflation. So there's that. There's people that were not working and that were being subsidized not to work, and that creates inflation because there's less workers for the amount of jobs that there are, and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden you have an inflationary environment, plus geopolitical tensions, which fuels the inflationary environment. And that's where we are. And I think, we discussed Russia and Ukraine last week, but a lot of the buildup was happening amidst every day of the news for 2 years was on COVID, and you see that, okay, well, people are ignoring Russia right now, and what a great time to start building up our military and strategizing when no one's paying attention.
So, just hitting a little closer to home as young adults here in Stanford. And Stanford, of course, is one of the most expensive places to live, certainly on the East Coast. My goodness. And so how does inflation, how does that impact you? And how can, as a Christian, does that, should we respond to things like that? Should we buy less? Should we, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that because no one else is talking, so I'll continue. How is it affecting me? Well, actually, I bought a home about 7 months ago now, 8 months ago. And so I kind of locked in my living expenses a bit at a very high level, but it's still locked in. So if there is continued inflation for a couple of years, I'll be protected a bit, I guess you could say.
So that might be a great blessing in disguise.
It could be, but it costs like $100,000 more than it would have the prior year. But that's the way it goes. That's inflation.
Yep.
So that's that. But and I think obviously food prices and gas prices. I'm going out to eat way less now. It's just absurdly expensive to go out to eat.
Yeah, it is.
Everything from like McDonald's. I think I was saying another time. I did a bacon, egg, and cheese and a coffee at McDonald's, and that was like $7.50.
Right.
And
Whoa.
I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna have a protein bar on my way up to ski.
I'm gonna have my $15 protein bar.
No, no,
Because you shop at Whole Foods. That's your
No,
problem.
I love it.
I shop
He
at
said
I'm
no
exclusive-
Costco.
I'm exclusive Costco shopper almost.
Well, you can
any
make-
case,
you can
It's
make
really a
full-
dream of mine. to get a
so how
Costco
do
card.
we address it? I think that we have to be more generous. We have to be more sacrificial because, like I said, the lowest rungs of the economic spectrum are getting hit the hardest.
And I think detached from material goods. That's been a big part of our American dream, right? Is, get the biggest house, the biggest car, and everything, all the bells and whistles. And now that it's becoming out of reach for many people, maybe we need to readjust our dream and realize, hey, you know what? I was too attached to this stuff.
Yeah, maybe I should aim at a different place.
Just for bells.
I mean, heck, there's like, if you go on YouTube, there are people that review stuff for a living.
Mm-hmm.
That is what they do. They compare OLED to QLED televisions. How do I know this? I watched it last week.
You are one? Oh, okay.
No, I wish. No, see?
Yeah.
American dream.
wish?
American
OLED's
dream,
better.
being a hedonist. Right?
That's true. That's certainly true. I was speaking with a man who lost about $70,000 in his 401k because of this downturn in the stocks, though. And he was,
Don't remind me.
I'm not sure. Oh, was that you?
No, go on.
I didn't know you had that much money. You guys rolling
No,
dope.
I didn't lose that much. It's not been good though.
But yeah, no, it hasn't been good. But he was taking a great approach. He was like, you know what? It's just money. My life's in God's hands. And he was getting towards retirement age. And
Right.
I'm like, wow, that's great to have that detachment.
I
That's
think.
living a life of faith, right?
Yeah, you can.
Because there are going to be ups and downs and challenges, and I think a lot of people do freak out when things maybe start to go wrong or crazy, and this is why you see the dives in the stock market, right? But it's Warren Buffett, right, who said, "I haven't lost anything, right? Because I haven't actually, yeah, he hasn't. Is it realized the gain? Or,
Yeah. If you don't sell, you don't lose anything. Comes
Right.
right back. So
But a lot of people freak out, and they do sell, and
Right.
it just shows how attached to their money people are, and a lot of these people are really freaking wealthy, you
Well,
know.
Right.
There was that saying that during the Great Depression, atheists jumped out windows while Christians went back to work. Because for an atheist, that's it. That's the end of the story.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was wrapped up in your wealth. When you lose it, you lose who you are. And
Right.
Christians are like, no,
There's no hope.
it's all right.
This is why we're called to be poor in spirit,
Yes.
right? Because it's not poor in spirit doesn't mean you can't have, any material possessions or any kind of wealth. It just means you can't be attached to it. You have to be as willing to give it away as you are to receive it.
Yes.
And
I think that
that's
speaks
poor in
to-
spirit.
We all forget that everything we have comes from God.
Yeah.
We know that, I think, most of us as Christians, but we can't really understand that. But God's hand is in everything, so he's always got us. And so we should be grateful all the time, but I think we're not. I think most of us think it's us that do it. Oh, I'm so great.
Right.
And this is why I got ahead and I make so much money. But it's not really us, it's God. And having that detachment, I think, is key, because stressing and worrying doesn't get you anywhere.
Right. And, there's so many ways to be able to stretch a dollar Like I'm back in the Great Depression when people sewed their own clothes. They.
Right.
I'm big. This is one of my weird hobbies that I don't think I've ever shared on this this podcast, this show. But I love foraging for edible wild foods.
Oh, you have mentioned that.
Did I mention that? Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned it to me.
You have mentioned it, yes.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know, so.
And now you know. Yeah. So last year I was like, I have like quarts of berries in my freezer, and I picked mushrooms. Only the good
And
kind.
wildlife came back because of COVID.
It did come back because of
you
COVID.
shared.
Yeah, it did. It did. But like that's a skill that if you learn it, then now all of a sudden I can make an entire meal, an entire salad without paying $1.
Right.
And just like different things like that. Learn how to change your own oil.
Right. I mean, it can be as simple as gardening.
Sure. Yeah. You
I
don't
mean,
have
that's
to forage.
like
You can
you don't have to
something a little
forage.
safer.
No, but you know what I mean? Like you don't have to.
You're not gonna
You
die
don't have to
with
go to
biting
the
a
wild.
tomato.
You could just go to like Designed by
backyard.
Lee and buy some seeds. Sorry, I'm sorry.
I think you can do it at Costco too, I believe.
I don't know if they sell seeds at Costco. They sell tomato plants at Costco.
Dude, they sell cars at Costco. Of course they sell
They sell
tomato-
cars
tomato-
at Costco.
They do.
Costco
We are
off.
off topic.
Costco off.
We're off topic.
Well,
No, but
I
this-
think it's telling in that, the world has changed in that you used to like be able to go to repair shops,
Yeah.
and the products you bought lasted longer and, you'd fix things if they broke. And now it's like, oh, it broke, get rid of it. I can order a new one on Amazon and it'll be here in 2 days. We're such a get it right now on demand, toss it when we're done with it. And what happens when there's supply chain issues and we can't get our products? What are we going to do?
So
we don't know
interesting-
how to fix things ourselves anymore either.
Right.
So interesting story is that so my dishwasher is broken right now, which is really a travesty
Oh
because
man.
I had a
you have
dinner
to do
party.
it by hand?
How long do you have to wait to get the new one?
No. So I didn't buy a new one. I actually have a repairman coming tomorrow, as it turns out. But what's interesting is that I was reading as like, okay, maybe I could figure this out myself, and I can't because it's very complicated, like expensive dishwasher that I bought the house with. So whatever. And what, as it turns out, is that replacement parts are in shorter supply than new dishwashers. So there is a chance that I will not be able to fix my dishwasher because there's not a replacement part. So I'll have to buy a new one, which is like an absurd concept to me.
Or
'cause
just
they're not
wait,
cheap.
a year or something?
I could.
It's not impossible.
Do dishes for a year by
What?
hand?
It's like he could offer it up
I could.
as like a penance or something.
Yeah, it's
Only
your,
if my
your
two,
Lenten
only if
sacrifice.
my two roommates / tenants comply.
And there's the critical piece.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
My mom grew up without a dishwasher, and she always begged her dad to buy them one. He said, I have 5 dishwashers.
Yeah, exactly.
Never got her dishwasher.
None of them are named me.
Nope, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so I mean, COVID certainly had a lot of impact in terms of the economy. Another thing that's had an impact on is in people's view of freedom. Recently we had that Freedom Convoy that was going on in Canada. What's your take on that? Like, that's
I honestly don't know what you're talking about.
Lauren.
That's
why don't you-
great.
Oh,
No,
is that-
that's good. That's
Is that
good.
is that like am I just
Why is
like
that
is my
good?
head in the sand?
Yes.
No, it's good that he doesn't know
Why is that good?
because he's focusing on more important things.
I don't know. That seemed pretty important. Like, Canadians are pretty docile people.
No,
No
I'm
offense
saying,
to our Ottawa friends.
Well, no, I'm
Right,
just
we have
saying,
listeners in
We do
Ottawa.
have listeners in Ottawa. Shout out to y'all. Yo.
No, I'm saying, but if you're, well, we know Matt's like studying theology and stuff and
Yeah.
teaching at schools, which is more important than knowing what's going on. No offense to Ottawans, what's going on with truckers in Canada, in my opinion.
But I forget who it was. Maybe Monsignor John Tracy Ellis, a very famous American Catholic priest who evangelized, said that the modern apostle has to evangelize with one hand on the Bible and one hand on the newspaper.
All right, I'm sorry.
In any case,
So, Lauren, fill them in on what is
Well,
the Freedom Convoy?
they're fighting for human rights, right? In that
Okay.
vaccines should not be mandated. The majority of the people in the convoy were vaccinated, but they are against mandating the vaccines.
Okay.
So this is basic human rights we're talking about that we all deserve.
And our church clearly teaches that. In December 2020, the Vatican, I forget, it was Pontifical Academy for Life, put out a document that says, while the COVID vaccines are morally permissible, they must, as a rule, be voluntary and not mandatory.
Right.
Go on.
Right. So thousands of people gathered in Ottawa, and there were blockades with their trucks. So truckers drive alone, right, in their cabins, but they're required to be vaccinated. So
That didn't make any sense.
Right.
it's illogical, but it's also just about everyone's freedom and standing up for that. And I heard some news bites from it where, it's very peaceful and there were bouncy castles for kids. And two of our friends from Stanford, Nick and Henry, even stopped in last weekend and they've got
Awesome.
some video of it. And they said there was a stage and people are doing karaoke. Like the environment, I think, was very friendly
Dude.
and supportive. But
I want to go.
when I heard they were going, I was like, that is
Free
awesome.
cotton candy.
Yeah. I mean,
what I want.
but just,
I love cotton candy. Where else are you going to get
But
cotton candy?
the response, I don't know if any of you heard the response, right, from the Canadian government was that they were terrorists, I believe.
Yeah.
I
mean, even Trudeau was kind of insulted, or not insulted, whatever, condemned for his words against the truckers and such.
And he wouldn't meet with them, and he had this line, he's willing to meet with peaceful organizations like Black Lives Matter, which is
has done some violence. So.
right.
Yeah.
Not what this protest was. And then, of course, there were claims and, I guess at least one claim of like a Confederate flag being, paraded around in the street somewhere. But the guy that I heard who talked about it said that person was completely covered up, so that you couldn't identify them.
Oh, really?
And everyone that is there, who was there, was freely showing who they were. They were not hiding who they were. So
Well,
it's highly suspicious.
I mean, it's amazing how even at the March for Life, how the media portrays us as anti-abortion foes or
Exactly right.
activists,
Right.
or peaceful
Exactly.
protesters.
They have
you know?
their narrative that they want to keep perpetuating. And I believe the convoy is on its way
To DC.
to DC.
Is it? I wasn't sure if it was
It
still
may have already
around,
come
actually.
at this
Okay.
point.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. They blocked, talk about supply chain issues. They blocked the bridge heading into Detroit, which is like one of the biggest, most traveled bridges for goods. And so it actually started to create a squeeze on both economies if you can't get stuff over that bridge. So
Yeah. But
have an
I mean,
effect.
it's just in observing world events. Have you seen kind of what you would consider perhaps a rise of authoritarianism, totalitarianism, even just like a soft sense,
But especially in Canada and even with religious freedoms.
Yeah.
Well, it's secularization, right? Because if you're afraid, who are you going to turn to? So if you don't have God in your life, who do you turn to? You turn to government. Protect me.
Yeah, I think
Tell
that's
tell
what's
other
going on.
people that they have to do things that are against their will so that I'm protected.
Yeah.
And you just take that in all different, and I don't like slippery slope argument, but it kind of builds on that. And all of a sudden you have the government coming in and trying to protect everybody from everyone, and then everyone ends up miserable.
I think that's exactly what we are seeing in the United States because we know the left is taking God out of everything as much as they can, right? And then COVID happened and all these mandates came in all these democratic cities, all about control and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And people were scared. People were depressed. People did feel vulnerable. And then the government was handing out all this money, right? Rely on us. And this is why people weren't working. They were paid to not work for over a year. Why would you work? Right? It's illogical. But oh no, that didn't do anything. Right? And now we do have inflation and we still have a labor force issue. I just feel like we can see it unfolding. They are turning people into like weak versions of themselves who don't have God and are only going to rely on the government more and more. And it's frightening to think about what this could all turn into.
Aquinas has such an interesting view on the role of authority. Because the role of authority, he says, is to elucidate the eternal law of God. So basically, to put laws for the ordering of the common good for society, and that's actually kind of a broad and vague definition.
But definitely Catholic social teaching.
Well, with Catholic social teaching, I think the important one is the principle of subsidiarity, that the people that are closest to the action should be making the decisions. So for mandates or whatever, it should be, parents who mandate for their children, not the government that mandates for their children. It should be towns that make a mask mandate, not the state.
Not the entire state.
Don't go bigger than you have to, basically, for your specific issue that you're dealing with. But when an authority oversteps its bounds and particularly infringes on human rights, because the one thing the church teaches clearly is that the rights of the individual do, in some sense, do somewhat supersede the rights of the masses, as it were, the collective. Because each individual is created in the image and likeness of God and is irrepeatable and has infinite value in God's eyes. Now, that does not mean that my freedom my freedom means I can do whatever I want, right? I have to obey traffic laws for good ordering of society. I have to do certain things because there's a responsibility that comes with the rights. And so that's the tough balance, is to say, well, where does your right end and my responsibility begin? Sometimes it's vague, and that's where I think we got a lot of the division. People saying, well, wearing a mask is infringing on my freedom. Well, okay. I mean, yes, but is it worth to infringe on someone's freedom if another person is protected, whether that's, true protection or whether it's just psychological? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but
I'm listening to this whole conversation, and I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is exhausting. Do you know what I mean? Like just the whole, political atmosphere, and the idea that people don't want to get a shot, but the government wants to force them to do it. You know what I mean? Or like, truckers, like blocking a road and blocking a bridge in Detroit, whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's just like, it is exhausting. And I look at this and I'm like, I see it as like, it's a gateway to sin, man. You know what I mean? Like this is what happens when you are exhausted, you're weak. You know what I mean? Like it weakens you. And I'm seeing how the physical exhaustion of this atmosphere leads to a spiritual weakness. It's one of the reasons why our society, it has to be one of the reasons why our society has,
well, yeah.
high depression rates, high suicide rates, et cetera. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and they've only gone up in the last year during COVID.
Right. And I don't know. I know that the idea, it's like up in my head, and I didn't, speak it well.
No, but I think I know exactly what you're trying to say, because and we were talking about how the war in Ukraine is really helping people to become united, really for the first time since September 11th. And because human beings, we need to have a battle to fight. We do. We need to have a reason to get up in the morning and fight something and to overcome something. And if it's not going to be the supernatural battle to conquer oneself and one's sinful nature by the grace of God, then we have to fight each other. Because that really should be the battle that we're fighting, right? It's something truly epic. The fact that we live in this epic war between good and evil, between God and Satan, the battleground is our soul, as St. Maximilian Kolbe said. That should be the battle that we're fighting. Instead, when we lose sight of that and we say, well, the battle, I don't know, it's going to be on Twitter.
Yeah.
It suddenly just brings the battle way down into like just the realms of just like muck.
And what does Twitter do? That's my point. Like, what does Twitter do?
Divides people.
Well, but it exhausts you.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean? Like, you sit and you stare at a false reality.
Sure.
For hours upon end. You know what I mean? And now you have wasted that time, but you've lost that battle, essentially. You're losing the battle in your soul to fight a war. Not saying that there isn't a real war in Ukraine. Obviously, you know what I mean? That's not what I'm saying. But, like, what should I do in that battle? We said it. We talked about it last week for the episode, right? What should I do for this battle in the Ukraine? I should pray.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real battle.
Yeah. And in the battle for your soul, practice virtue, make sacrifices. That's what we should be fighting. And when we're fighting that, we don't have time to worry about the stupid things.
Right.
So something you said was, I think something Paul said about unreality is one more thing that is going on in the current world that I want to get your take on. And that is the Metaverse. Have you heard or been seeing the Metaverse?
I heard of it, yes.
It's,
can we further define it? I know it's like Facebook's thing, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But like, what is the Metaverse? What does that mean? It's
an alternate reality that you can participate in virtually.
It is kind of a vague term.
Sims? Is it Sims?
It's like Sims, but you're an actual person in it to some extent.
And you get like VR goggles. So you're actually physically in it.
Oh, it's Ready Player One.
Yeah, kind of.
Right.
It's like never mind.
But even beyond that, actually, it's connected to the idea called the Internet of Things. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
The Internet of Things is the idea that everything in your life is going to be connected to the internet. So your fridge, you can be shopping and be like, hey, fridge, do I need more eggs? And your fridge would be like, yes, you do. Or whatever.
That was a good fridge impersonation.
Thank you. I've been working on my Siri for years. But so is this whole idea of like really augmented reality of getting glasses that will show you weather and maps just in your glasses at all times. Is this good, bad, indifferent?
I think it's terrible. I think it's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think the more we take people out of reality, the more the farther they fall. Because you live in a world, you live in a physical world with real people and real interactions, and you can't escape that. Sorry.
And one day you will die. You know what I mean? Like one day you're going to die, and it doesn't, whether or not you lived it in the metaverse or in reality, you're going to die and you're going to face judgment.
So can you sin in the metaverse?
Yeah.
If your avatar murders somebody, are you guilty of murder?
I guess that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking like if you're, because then you can make the argument like, okay, if I play Call of Duty, am I sinning? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And I don't think that's
Harass
necessarily
people
true.
in the game. I
and
imagine.
Oh, that's true.
So I heard they took the legs away from the people, so now they just float. And I think it was to avoid like sexual harassment happening in the metaverse.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
See, I've never had Facebook, and
You've never had a Facebook?
No.
Wow, that's very impressive.
That is
and I don't
impressive.
plan on starting now. That's for sure.
Definitely don't.
It would be funny if you said, you know what? Now's the time.
No, now I want to start.
Now I'll get a
Sparks
Facebook.
that desire in your
Yeah,
life.
now I want the metaverse.
Well, back to your, the truth which you spoke, in that we are all fighting, right? Really every day to grow in holiness, right? That battle of good and evil is real. The devil is real. He wants us. He hates us. He wants us in hell with him. He's always tempting us. But I think the majority of people are just totally unaware of that, right? I mean,
Right.
and that's the devil's first trick, is that, he makes us think he doesn't exist. And whatever we're being drawn to or tempted to, it's not him, it's something else, or it's us. It's our own weakness, like turning us against ourselves. So that's already forgotten, which is, I think, scary enough as it is. And this is why, as Matt was talking, there are high rates of depression and alcohol use and suicide and drugs, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And now we're going to go to this metaverse.
Taking all our problems with us.
And it's just
Yeah.
one step away, as Paul was saying, from reality, which is you are a human created by God to know, love, and serve him for all eternity. And it's just forgotten. It's not lived. And it's sad. It's scary. We got to bring God back, I think, to people.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of a greater adventure, a more life-giving adventure than life.
Right.
Life is so beautiful, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love what Chris Stefanik says. He says, think about this. You don't have to live. You get to live. What a privilege, to be here on this earth and breathe air and experience love and challenges and food and all the good stuff that the world has to offer.
love and food.
If I just have those two things, I'd be happy with the rest of my life. Love and food.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Restless. Go and enjoy your life. Pray, hope, don't worry. Trust in the Lord. Keep your eyes fixed on him. Be detached from this world. That's a lot of different things you need to do. But with God's grace, we can all do that. You can find us on Veritas Catholic Network. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. So tune in next time as we restless young adults go seek the face of Christ in the midst of this crazy, mixed up world. Tune in next time.